Hey guys, Kid here, Burn One. I'm actually joined with Nico.
Hey, what's up, guys?
Yeah, we're doing something we haven't done in quite a while. We're actually doing a deck profile here. This is actually on the Revue Standby Pants list that Nico and I ran at the WGP National Tournament for North America. I ended up going 4-2 and got kicked out of top 16 because there was already another Revue player in top 16. Then I think Nico, you went 2-2, right?
All right, I went 3-2.
3-2, yeah, 3-2.
Yeah.
A little more unfortunate than me, I guess, on some of the matchups. But we figured we'd give you this list because I think it's a little different than what most people are playing right now, at least in Revue, of what we've seen, and it's a fairly strong list for the most part. One thing to keep in mind, though, I guess, is that when we designed this list together, we had some of the choices in here were definitely based around what we saw qualified at to make it to nationals and what we thought the meta was going to be like. But yeah, anything else worth saying, Nico?
Oh
That's like
no,
Pixelgate,
I
right?
think the list is like super strong, but it does have a couple of kind of big weaknesses that we tried to mitigate, but sometimes you still kind of get screwed over by. This list is tech to kind of beat the meta that we thought we were going to see at the WGP. So
Yeah,
if you don't like some of our tech choices, you're able to kind of mold the list to kind of what you want to be able to do.
yeah. I think overall the shell's like pretty flexible, but I guess we'll just jump into the list now and go from there. I guess we'll start at level 0 here. We played 3 of the 4K Twin Drive Nana, 3 of the new Brainstormer. That's Salvage Brainstorm self tap, as well as when you use an act ability, give something 500 power. 3 set 1 Rickies. 1 spammable Brainstorm that also got extra effects if you had the level 3 experience, or the specific level 3 for your experience. 2 Drop Searchers. They're the same Drop Searchers as the Bunny Girl one. It's kind of just a really good drop searcher. And then 3, 3, 5 run to center beaters. Um, so I guess you want to go into the level 0 lineup a little bit, like why we made these choices and everything, Nico.
Yeah, sure. Some of these are self-explanatory. Like Twin Drive works super well with both standby and pants. Just lets you pay out the climaxes, especially if you attack in the right order. The Brainstormer is really nice because now your counters get an extra 500 power, and self-tap salvage is always really good. The Ricky lets you confirm your top checks, and it's a plus at 0. I really wish we were able to fit in more of the spammable Brainstorm. I think that's probably like my biggest regret because this card was really, really good.
Yeah, I'm surprised in some of within this past few week or this week, I've seen some JP lists pop up that are like have really similar ideas as our list was, but none of them are really running the spammable brainstorm. One of the biggest issues we hit with the deck is that in some cases, especially first deck, you'll end up with like just bad shuffles, and you just want to blow through your deck as soon as possible. And this spammable brainstorm came in really, really clutch. And then the fact that it also has the other ability of giving 500 power in front, as well as at the start of climax phase, you can give a character another 500 power. Was really, really powerful. As long as you had the level 3 in your experience zone. It just
Yep.
like yeah, it just made your level 1 game just even that much harder in 2 lanes to get over, especially when you hit like mirror matches or other decks that are trying to win the board, right?
Yeah. The other tech choices are kind of self-explanatory. The drop searcher is just really good, and it mills, gets you what you need. The 3 of the runner is also really solid. Just remember, sometimes the pay 2 encore does become relevant for your opponent, so
Only if
don't.
they remember.
Yeah, try not to keep the card around too much. Um, yeah, that's all I have to say on that one.
Yeah, and as far as these numbers go, I think are we really? I think overall we were really satisfied with the numbers, but now that the whole event's over, do you think there's any changes here? Maybe do we want to like would we bump up to 4, 3, 5 runners? Because I feel like every game we opened with it was just like a really really good game for like us.
I agree. You can probably cut some of our other choices later down the line, and maybe up it to 4, or maybe even up the twin drive to 4.
Yeah, yeah. All right, so we get into our level 1 game. This is a little bit different than most of the level 1 games. This is part of the reason why I think this combination of the pants standby is really strong. is we actually play two 2K counters. Of course, we're playing a field-based game, so that's what we want. One of our tech choices here is the 1/1. Was it Hikari or Karen?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I always forget which one's
One
which.
Karen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It reverses higher level battle opponents in your opponent's current level. So this is like really good in like mirror matches or in the Albuta matchup where they stand by out the 2/2. It doesn't have hand encore, so you can drop this and remove it from the board and still keep like strong board presence in the other two lanes, which is really really good. And like in those cases, sometimes your opponent doesn't even get opportunities to build off of the 2 soul beater for that long. So it's just like really really good. It kind of sucks in some matchups where your opponent has ways to bring back their 2/2, like if they have hand encore and stuff like that. But we're expecting a lot of Albuta, right? So, and like possibly some other standbys or maybe even mirrors. So this 1/1 was like a pretty decent tech choice. It came in handy like once or twice, but I mean, I could see it being cut if need be. It also has a soul trigger, which is always great.
Yeah. This is one of the cards we just mentioned. This is a tech card, so you can easily cut this to kind of fit what you want to fit in there. I do remember you gave me a lot of crap for this card, and then you said you did end up saying like it came in handy for a couple of your matches, though.
Yeah,
So.
yeah, for sure. At the beginning, I was like, "This card sucks. Why are we playing this?" And then, like, day of the event, I was like, "Oh, this card is so good." But yeah, but I can still see it being cut because it's just so dependent on the meta.
Yeah.
Next, we play this 1/0. It's a what is it? I guess the common term is Slayer.
Assassin.
Or Assassin. Yeah. It gets power on play for every character. So if it's the last card played, it gets 2/5 power. So it's like usually a 1/07K. But the reason we play this card is because its first effect is when it's played from hand, you can pick the level 3 Akira from Waiting Room and the card in Level Zone and swap them. This is to make sure we always have our level condition. It doesn't happen too often, but we need a way just in case if we get hit too hard too quickly, to have a way to set up for our level 1 game, since our level 1 game is based on having that level 3 in the level zone. So sometimes you're forced to like drop search for it early on because something's gonna mess up. But we have a couple ways to find it. Originally I was arguing for 2, and we ended up cutting 1 for the 1/1, like we said. But yeah, it's just a really solid card. I mean, maybe if you have more trouble finding the 3/3 early on, you probably bump this up to 2. But we didn't run into too many games where it was so crucial to have this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, like, I think in all of our games of testing and all of our games of playing the deck, just having the 1-up was fine. Like, if you never drew the Akira, you were always, like, I know I was always able to drop search for it or brainstorm and salvage it and just clock it the next turn or something. So, yeah. I never had an issue with getting Akira into the level zone when it mattered the most or when you needed to.
Yeah, actually, it's really funny because my first game at Nats, I wasn't able to get Akira in the level zone until level 2. But the game was already so aggressive and so weird, though, that it ended up not mattering anyway because I just got hit from like 1/0 to 2 something. So, like, eh.
Ooh.
But yeah. Our final card here is this Demon Akira. It has a negative side effect of not being able to side, which actually comes up sometimes. It doesn't come up that often, but it's forced to always front attack or direct attack. But the second effect, which makes this card so strong, is that if you have the level 3 Akira in level zone, then this card gains 1500 all the time. So it's a 1/07K. So what makes it so powerful in this deck is that your level 1 game, you're usually playing like 1/1s that have hand encore and they're 7/5 power. But if you miss the opportunity of like high rolling them out early, you end up having to pay stock for them to get that power and that field advantage. Whereas here, if you like don't hit standby, you don't really care because these cost nothing for you. So that lets you conserve a little bit on stock heading into your level 2 game. And then that lets you play around a little more and then play the level 3 combo at level 2 with the standby a lot easier as well. And 7K right now is just like defensive wise is pretty tough for some people. Some people can only get to 7K on their climax combo, and if you have a counter, you can save 2 lanes by doing a 2K counter in one lane and then buff 500 with the brainstorm in the other lane. Generally, you're kind of looking for like to win 2 lanes with the Akira if you can, and then you have one lane where it's like a twin drive Nana or something that you don't really care about.
Yeah.
Anything else we're missing here?
No, I think you covered it. I think the important part was that 2K counters really, really strong in combined with the brainstorm. I know a couple of the games I had at Nats, I had double brainstorm out in the back row, so you could just assign plus 500 power somewhere and then another plus 500 power when you used one counter, which was really, really strong.
Yeah, it's one thing too in like these mirror matches of people trying to fight for board, like having the extra 500 power pump or even two extra 500 power pumps versus those decks is just like super powerful. It's something like not a lot of people are expecting. Level 2 here. We have this level 2 Hikari. So this is a choice I think a lot of people would question us on. But getting into why we picked this is over the, I think it's a 2-2, what's the other girl's name? Not Juna, is it? Or no,
it's Michiru. It's the same
Michiru,
girl as the
Michiru,
standby.
whatever, yeah. So the other one is 10-5 power with hand on core, which is generally better than the 2-2 11k with full field. But we actually valued the 500 power more because one, we're not looking really to like slam it, standby at one all the time to bring out a 2-2. It's more of a if it's there, it works out.
Yeah,
Or
if you have the play, then you make the play. Otherwise, you're not trying to force the level 2 out like as soon as you possibly can.
Yeah, and a lot of the times, like we said, we're playing like two Akira 1-0s and like a Nana stand or a Nana brain twin drive, and then like if you hit standby off of that, it's a good target to pull out at level 2 or level 1. I'm sorry. And then the extra 500 power goes a really long way when our counters are 2-5 power. So when we're fighting other standby decks and their 10-5s can't contest our 11Ks with counters just because of the extra 500 power and another extra 500 power from our brainstormer. It just gets too big at that point for anyone to really contest with their own 2-2s. So it either forces them to fight in other lanes or whatever, or like even if we know they're out of counters, we can actually fight their 2-2s with our 2-2. And if we lose the 2-2, it doesn't feel too bad, really. But yeah, and it also forces like really weird side wars in mirror or in standby matches where people are fighting with 2-2s like that. Of course, like if you're not expecting to hit like a bunch of mirror matches or something like that, the 10-5 hand on core might be better overall. You know, I think in general, like an unknown field. Would you say, Nico?
Yeah, I think overall, like this was more of a hard meta call. I think it's probably our harder meta calls that we've had, just because this easier or more easier contest decks like Bunny Girl and stuff. I remember us actually discussing the math on this, and just like this is overall kind of like better for the event because it contests more stuff. But
Yeah.
this is like if you don't like this and you want the security of being able to have like hand on core and stuff, you can really easily just replace it with what we said earlier, the 2-2 that has hand on core and is 10-5.
Yeah. Next is another card here that I think, like, at least for us at the time, no one's really probably thinking about this card. It's a 2-1-4K counter as long as you have the level 3 in your level zone. So it's a 2-5 by itself, and then it gains extra 1500 power if you have it. So 4K counter plus, extra 500 boost power up makes this a 4-5 counter with the brainstorm out, which is like absurdly powerful. It makes it so like any of your level 1s can contest level 3s on defense, things like that. It just like gets really absurd at times. So like your 107K becomes a 11-5, so it can like fight 10-5s or whatever, 2-2 10-5s that your opponents play, things like that. It just like makes it really awkward for people to like deal with this, especially if they don't know the math on this. They just kind of fall into it, which happened a couple times through my rounds. People would like attack with their early play level 3s to my 1-0 Akira, and I'd just be like, here's this 4-5 counter. I guess I win.
Yeah, that's happened to me a couple times during the event also. It felt really, really good. Just be like, hey, how big is that? They're like, oh, 10K. I'm like, cool, I'm 11-5.
Yeah. Next, we have this 2-1. This is actually our choice early play killer, and this is another card that I think when we first looked at it was just like, it's okay, it's solid. And then when we played with it, we're like, this card is absurdly good. I
want to find a way to up this.
Yeah, I almost want 2 in the deck like most of the time. So the first effect it has is if you have the level 3 in your level zone, it gains an extra 1500 power and the effect of Twin Drive, pay 1 Twin Drive on attack, which is really, really good for this card since it makes it 8k base once you have that experience, and you always have that experience. Like, that's the main game plan here. So you have a 2-1 8k with Twin Drive. On top of that, you have whenever it battles other level threes, or it attacks into level threes, it gains extra 6k power. So this is always 14k base against early plays. Most early plays can't really defend against that, especially when you start pumping it with our support in the back row. And if we're at level 2, we hit like standby or whatever, we pull out like Nana support. It gets so big. So like if we have a 3-2 2k support behind it, it's 10k base, and it's like that's really hard for people to like contest. And the fact that it has twin drive as well means you get more clean stock as well as higher chance to hit standbys or pants to get more climaxes to hand or other early play level threes.
Yeah, this card is really, really good.
Yeah, it was really, really good. It did way better than I thought it was going to do.
Yeah.
Our final, this is one of another tech choices we picked. This 2-1 level support from set 1. Was it Calico?
Yep.
Yeah. Your other front row center slot gains 500 power, and then it's a level support in front. And then the reason we picked this last effect is during the start of your opponent's main phase. So it's like right after they clock. You could choose to pay one to pick a card in their clock, send it to waiting room, and they clock themselves from the top of their deck.
This is literally here for the Konosuba and the Goblin Slayer matchups.
Yeah, literally, like at level 1, your game plan is you standby out this immediately, and then you win the game automatically. Because most people are not ready for this at all, and I think a lot of people just forget about this card's effect. So people will shape their hands or build their deck basically around Priestess level 3 coming out early, or in Konosuba's case, there was a lot of lists that played early play Megumin, and then they need that clock condition. And if you just pay one, it's just basically pay one, win the game. Their hand becomes nothing, and they can't do anything for the rest of the game. The only time this like backfires is if they high roll and like you snipe the card, and then they clock themselves from top of deck, and it's the same card, and then you're just like, wow, I just wasted one stock. But that's just like some really crazy high roll then.
Yeah, that's very fringe scenarios.
Yeah, this card, I think we're in agreement though. Like, if your meta doesn't have to worry about clock condition early plays as much as we did or we thought we were going to run into, this is an easy cut. You probably change this into the 2-1 early play Slayer, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Finally, we're at level 3s. You want to go over it?
Yeah, sure. So we have a lot of tech pick level 3s. We run one of the Nana. It's 1500 global. During your turn, you also get 1k power to the center. It comes into play heals, which is we actually valued that quite a bit when we chose to run this card. And when it comes into play, it has an additional effect of pay 1, and you can summon a level 0 onto your opponent's board. That particular effect came up maybe one time for me, but it's still very nice to be able to guarantee reverses for your Akira. I would say overall solid card. Also pretty decent just standby target, 1500 global and 1k extra into the center during your turn is always nice.
Yeah.
We run one of the 3-2 Karuko. We don't run the climax combo. We literally only run it for the bounce. This is mainly for the Albuta matchup. If they get their bodyguard out, you want to be able to get rid of that because it becomes kind of like a pain in the butt to try to answer their, like, how big does it get? Like, behind 2 back row, it's 16-5, and then they have a 3-5 counter, so it's like 20k.
Yeah, that power level gets absurd sometimes, and if you know they have counters and stuff, you just want to get rid of it.
Yeah, so you just bounce it. Also works against Priestess. If they've neg sold you, you can just bounce it before their neg soul takes effect, and you can do something cheeky like play it, bounce something, play over it, brainstorm and play it again, and just if you want to push damage or something and bounce their other valid targets. That's a bit of an all-in move, but it's nice cheeky play to have in your arsenal. Next, we have a card that I think is misraritied pretty highly.
Yeah.
This 3-2 is unbelievable for a rare. So this is a 3-2. Has damage scry on play. Pretty much is an early play. What is it? Has hand encore for Revue characters, and has the climax combo of if it's you can pay 1, sack the standby climax that we run, stand this, and give your board 1 soul, along with putting the climax into waiting room. This is not okay. This card is really, really good. So your standby pretty much becomes a pay one plus one soul to your field if you need it. You get this out at level 2, and you have a damage scryer on board. And then if you hit a standby off of one of the attacks, you'll have 2 damage scryers on board. And not taking damage is pretty good from what I've been told. I don't know how much more input I can have on this card. Do you have anything else, kid? This card is just
Yeah, this card is absurd. I think it is misraried. Like, it's really weird because all of these effects separately are pretty mediocre effects, but the combination of all of them together is like absurd. There's a lot of times where people would hit me from like 1-0 to 2-0, and I'm just like, okay, this you just die now because now I get to do this, and their like uncompressed deck just now eats a ton of damage. The fact that it has hand encore as well is really absurd.
it just doesn't
Yeah,
die. They
it like
yeah.
10k is like who like everyone's like I can kill 10k at level 2. It doesn't matter. But look, we're getting scries every turn off of this. We usually summon this out really early into our level 2 game. So for like 2-0, 2-1 or something, this is coming out immediately. That means we get multiple turns of scry, which means the longer this exists on the board, the more value we get. The fact that you can't remove it unless you send it to another zone, and we can't, encore it from there. It's just going to be here for the rest of the game. In combination, where when we pull this out, it's really easy for us to like have the stock to double Akira as well. I think this is something that no one really thinks about that often, is the fact that this 2-soul beater that has value the longer it stays out in the game also makes it so that we don't have to pay more stock to keep getting 2-soul beaters. So we can now discard like dead draws we normally have, like 2/2s or the 2/1 support or something like that, cards we never want to see again, because have value later in the game as ditch outlets, or not ditch outlets, encore, like, yeah, just using to encore this 3/2. And the fact that this comes out so early into level 2, you just, like I said, you just get so much value the longer it stays. Like, it's gonna pay off in the end, basically.
Yeah. That card is super solid. Actually, I think without this card, you probably don't even run standby. That's one of the main reasons you run this. It's just so damn good.
Yeah, I think in our testing when we first played, I tested Gate and Standby, and I was like, this deck feels pretty whatever. But let me tell you, this level 3 Standby combo felt really broken. And then that's how it got transitioned into this list when we started testing Akira level 3.
Yep.
It was just too strong.
All right. Next card. It's kind of an okay card. If you have a full field, this Hikari gets -1 level in hand. Gets 2k power on your turn, and then comes into play stock healer. So you discard a card and heal the top card of your clock into stock. It's okay. It has a little bit of anti-synergy, I feel. You still run this card, but it doesn't work super well, because a lot of the times going into your level 2 turn, you're probably going to be setting up to play the 3/2 Michiru standby. And so you can play this card, but like standbying over something a lot of the time just kind of feels pretty crappy.
Yeah, so I think it's more of follow-up play after the Michiru, because the condition's so easy to hit, and then like healing early with the combination of scrying damage away is pretty powerful.
Yeah. All right. Next up, we get up to pretty much the key card of the deck. It's 4 of the 3/2 Akira. If you have a copy of itself in level zone, this gets 2k on the board. Heals on play, then climax combos with a pants on reverse, pay 2, and icy tail your opponent twice, which is mill the bottom 4 cards of their deck. For every climax, they burn a damage. This card I actually thought was not going to be very good. And then I tested it, and I'm like, oh my god, this card is ridiculous. It also pretty much makes your entire deck broke. Your spammable Brainstorm becomes an assist 5 and give 500 power. 1/0 Akira becomes 7k. Counter becomes 4k. The Slayer becomes a Twin Drive at 8k. And then this also just becomes an 11k on the board for no reason. So, yeah, really good card. The climax combo can be kind of iffy. It's a little more of a high roll, but a lot of the times I guess the word is kind of like you're trying to more grind out your opponent with your scries and stuff, and you're not trying to like explosively kill them from 3-0 or anything like that. So the finisher is all right.
Yeah, I think we discussed this afterwards. You're definitely looking to, I mean, like, you can probably explosively kill people with two of them on board if you get two of them off. But generally, we're like, you save this for the last attack, and then after you see what resolves, then you decide whether to do it, seeing what's left in the deck and things like that. Because, I mean, like, usually you're using this to close, like, the last 1 to 2 damage just in the game. Not like, I'm going to burn you for 4. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then once again, I mean, it's a healer too, so it feeds into the whole scrying plan and stuff, healing down to 3-0 and just having more scries off of Mahiru or whatever.
Yep. Oh, my hero, that's her name. Oh man. Yeah, right. So next we have one of the 3/2 Juna. Comes into play, look at 3, add a card to hand. On attack, pay 1, ditch 1, mill 5, burn your opponent for the number of climaxes you milled. It's okay. I think you and I have argued about this card a little bit as to whether or not we should keep this in or not. I'm still kind of more on the cut side, but the card's okay. It provides an alternative kind of finishing burn condition. And I don't know what we would really replace it with. Did this card like come in handy for you at all during the national run or nah?
It did actually. There was one game where I had like three or four cards left in deck, and I needed to burn 2 to win the game, and there was 2 climaxes in there. So I was like, "Oh, this is the card to play." And
Okay.
then yeah, outside of that, I mean, like it grabs you climaxes and stuff. It's just an okay card. I think 1 is fine. I don't know if I would consider cutting it. I don't know if there's anything more high value over this that we could run.
Yeah, I think other than like beefing up our other numbers to be 4 for consistency, this card is fine.
Yeah.
All right, next we get another. For the final level 3, we have a pretty absurd card. If you have the Akira in level zone, this gets -1 level in hand. It's an assist front by 2k, and then comes into play, look at X off the top of your deck. X is the number of music characters. Why does this card exist?
This is a double rare, right? I forget.
This is a double rare.
All right, that's fair.
I don't know why this card exists.
Yeah, so this is every game. This is a 2/2 2K support. Filter basic or not filter. +1 or whatever replaces itself. One of the things we discussed about this, which is really really dirty, is that you can refresh with all 8 climaxes. Go into your level 2 turn. Say if you have a really good like level 1 game, you refresh at like 1/6 or whatever. You don't have to hold a standby through your refresh. You just play one of these after you put like 4 other or like 3 other characters on the board, and then you top check 4 and grab the standby that you will always find because this is how the card works. And then you play the standby and you summon out the 3/2 Mihiru. Like this happened.
Which is now a 12k, by the way.
Yeah, now it's 12k. So not only is it harder to reverse, now even if you reverse it, you have to have a way to send it to memory or something. Otherwise, it's staying around. Yeah, like it's just absurd that you can refresh 8 and still like rip a climax off of the top of your deck to summon the 3/2 Mahiru. It makes your 1/0 7Ks into 9Ks, and like we said, we have a 4/5 counter in the deck. Like, this card's really really good. You almost want it as a 3, but I think 3 is too much.
Yeah, I think 3 is a little too much. 2 is just right, but this card is super absurd.
Yeah, I think there's never been every time I've played this deck, there's never been a time where I was sad I drew this card or sad I played this card.
Yeah,
it was just like every time you played it, just felt so powerful. And just like, yeah, I don't know how many times this came up for you and Nats, but like, I think out of the 6 games I played, 3 of them were I played this and got the standby off of the top of my deck and then summoned the 3/2 Mahiru. And it's just like, I think my opponent's soul is crushed at that point. Like, what are they going to do for the rest of the game?
I don't think that came up too often for me.
I don't know. I must have. Well, clearly I high rolled more. But yeah, it felt really really good.
Yeah.
And then finally we have 4 pants for standby. the
Yep,
combo
4
with
pins for standby.
everything considerably. Yeah. Anything else to note about this deck?
This deck is super solid. I think it's absurdly strong. I think the one weak point to this deck, if I had to name it, would be the lack of good like hand selectivity. You try to mitigate that with your brainstorms and your drop searches and stuff, but sometimes it just you can't get all like exactly what you want to hand all the time.
Yeah, that can be a little rough for the most part, but I think overall
But I
it's
think that's honestly like the only real weakness to the deck. Outside of it, maybe your first deck is or can be a little rough, which we already touched upon.
yeah. I think one thing you could consider. I don't think you were very happy about this, but I think playing like the 1/1 2K mill 3 counter is like an okay way to like mitigate situations in your first deck that are like, oh, I'm out 8 and there's like 6 cards left in my deck still. Like at least this will get me through my deck quicker. Things
Yeah.
like that. I think one thing to note too, which is kind of nice about this deck in a way, is that standby, like, I know this is like kind of a meme, but like standby doesn't really push damage too hard early on in the game, but you usually make that up as the longer the game goes on. One of the interactions here that's really really strong is that because you don't push your opponent too fast through level 1, most decks they usually push you to level 2 first. And if they didn't spend extra resources early on to mill their deck and get a good refresh, being hit to 2 feels really good because Mihiru just like pushes so much damage once she comes out. There's a couple games where my opponent like was just like slamming climaxes back to back, and then they hit me to level 2 before they even got to level 2, and they were still on first deck. And I was just like, okay, Mihiru, I swing for 3/3/3 now, and they eat it all, and then they go from like mid 1 like 4 or something, and they get hit all the way to like 2/5, 2/6, and even sometimes straight to level 3, just because I guess they weren't expecting that explosive push from, I guess, like a standby deck or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like one thing I think a lot of people don't consider is that because we don't push damage as hard, they have to spend a little bit more on the resource side to get through their deck a little quicker if they don't have a lot of free ways to mill their deck, right?
Yep.
Yeah, I think that's it though, right? Anything else you can think of?
Yeah, there is one other thing. One of the cool things you can do with a standby is if you already have like a 2/2 out and then you standby out the 3/2. If you know like your opponent's holding counters, like let's say they're playing Bunny Girl and they have like 2 of the 11Ks on the field. If you know your opponent's like holding counters or something, you can just side him at that point for 1 with your 2 soul beaters, and then you just kind of reverse the situation on them because now they have to crash into you. You probably have counters, and if you have the 2K support out, you're probably bigger than them, so you get to win board that way. That's a just a little cheeky play though.
Yeah, I don't think that's ever come up with me, but I remember we did discuss this going into Nats, that if we hit like a matchup like this, like if you draw into the standby and you stand the 3/2 with everyone giving a soul, like you can play the cheeky, I'm gonna side you for 1 game. Now you have to deal with it, and most likely you won't be able to respond because you play standby. So like if you side, you have to get lucky on the triggers. Whereas we're guaranteed at least 1 on the side attack. It gets into like really awkward positions, and like if we get into that scenario too, it like plays more into our game plan of scrying damage and like making the game slower through scries basically.
Yep.
Yeah.
Other than that, I think that's it.
Yep. So yeah, if you guys are struggling with a review list that you're looking to try out, try this. Like it's really really solid. I think you'll be really happy with it. Yeah. If you might have to edit this just a little bit depending on your meta. Like we might take out the 2/1 support. Maybe you take out the 1/1, swap some stuff around that makes it a little bit more consistent for you. But yeah, overall deck super solid. Loved it. Yeah, can't complain about it. I think that's it. Any last words, Nico?
No, I don't think so.
All right. We'll see you guys in the next video. Later. Before you go, make sure to like and subscribe to our channel if you do enjoy our content, as it does help us grow, and check out some of these social media links below.